I used to believe that if you worked hard enough, stayed long enough, and kept your head down, justice would eventually find its way to your door. Turns out justice doesn't have GPS, or maybe it just hates Austin in the summer. My name is Madison Clark, 36, 10 years at NorthBridge Dynamics, a tech company that started as 3 people in a garage and now has 3 floors and over 200 employees. I was the one behind nearly every deal that brought in our first revenue. I built the sales process, hired the team, and kept our CRM from turning into a bowl of spaghetti. But when I said that out loud, people usually just laughed and said, Madison's the backbone of the sales department. A backbone no one bothers to keep warm when winter comes. July in Austin feels like living inside an open oven. The office AC ran at full blast, but couldn't cool the tension in the air. Rumors about the new vice president of sales had been swirling for weeks, and every sign pointed to one name, mine. I'm not the type who likes giving speeches, but I was ready. A short one. No fluff, just focus, dedication, teamwork, and a clear vision for what comes next. I even practiced it in front of the mirror, in my bathroom, at 6 in the morning. It felt like a high school kid rehearsing a confession. Hopeful, a little nervous, but sure it was the right thing to do. And then Ethan Wells showed up, 27. Slick hair, startup founder grin, the kind of guy who shook your hand like you were a potential investor. The CEO's nephew, transferred from California 3 months ago for a so-called strategic role. Experience? Making TikToks for a sneaker brand. Achievement? A TEDx talk titled Conquering the Fear of Mondays. Charming, talkative, and overconfident. A walking Silicon Valley parody with an EQ equal to his age. I wasn't worried. I'd trained Ethan myself, or, as HR called it, mentored with light supervision. I showed him how to read sales charts, negotiate with legal, and reply to emails without using emojis. I thought it was temporary, a learning stint, a side character arc, until I saw him in the executive strategy meeting. Not sitting in the back to observe, but right at the center of the table, laptop open, nodding along as they discussed West Coast market expansion. No one explained why he was there, and I didn't ask. Some questions only make you smaller. That day, I wore my favorite navy blazer, perfectly tailored, sharp at the shoulders, like armor. I arrived 15 minutes early, made a cup of coffee, and reviewed my speech one last time on my phone. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. The atmosphere felt like a secret date between people pretending not to know what was coming. Mark Wells, the CEO, smiled warmly. HR sat beside him, hand resting on a stack of papers, like an award presenter. Something felt off. No one looked at me when I walked in. Not the jealous glances that usually follow a promotion. Just avoidance, like everyone already knew the ending but couldn't say it out loud. 10:05 a.m. Thank you all for being here, Mark began, his voice calm and steady. Today marks an important milestone in Northbridge's journey. I nodded, hand over my phone, ready to deliver my speech. And we're thrilled to announce the person stepping into the role of Vice President of Sales, someone who will lead us into our next phase of growth. Everything slowed. I took a deep breath. Ready. Ethan Wells. Silence. 3 full seconds. Then scattered applause. Someone even whistled. I turned to look at Ethan. He smiled, radiant, standing up with practiced humility. Thank you, everyone. I couldn't have done this without the incredible guidance of Madison. Every head turned toward me. I smiled, a thin, paper-like smile, impossible to read. I don't remember much after that. Just walking out of the conference room, down the long fluorescent hallway, and into the women's restroom. I stared into the mirror and whispered, if they want to play dirty, fine, I know how to play too. I still remember that moment, standing in front of the mirror on the 3rd floor, not like someone who'd just been blindsided, but like someone waking up from a 10-year dream. Have you ever felt that way? Doing everything right and still being pushed aside? If you're listening to this while stuck in traffic on I-35, sipping coffee in Seattle, or stepping out of the subway in New York. I want to know where you're from. Drop a comment and tell me where you're tuning in from. Are you listening on your morning commute or winding down after a long day? And hey, if this story hits close to home, don't forget to subscribe. There's a lot more coming. I didn't cry, didn't slam the table, didn't storm out of the room. I didn't say a single word. Somehow that seemed to confuse them more than any outburst ever could. I walked straight back to my desk, opened my laptop, and started replying to emails as if nothing had happened. In my inbox sat a message from HR titled Internal Title Transition, Support Resources. I clicked it, then deleted it. Starting with transition and ending with support sounded exactly like a breakup text from someone who'd already moved on. That afternoon, Ethan stopped by my office. He stood at the door holding a cup of matcha, his face lit up like he'd just closed $1 million deal. Hey, Madison, just wanted to say thanks. Really. You're the one who helped me understand what real enterprise sales looks like. I owe you big time. I nodded, smiling lightly. Yeah, keep it up. Oh, and one more thing, he added, turning to leave. I'll probably need your help transitioning a few things. Some of the old client pipelines are still a bit tricky, and if anything interesting comes up with the new deals, just share it my way, okay? We're still one team, right? One team? Was he serious? I didn't answer, just watched him walk off, every step radiating that freshly crowned knight confidence. 2 days later, my department was moved down to the first floor next to engineering. Official reason: workspace optimization. The desk where I used to sit, overlooking the Austin skyline, now belonged to Ethan. He pinned up a surfing photo on the glass wall, along with the slogan, Move fast, close faster. A week later, Ethan appeared on the company's official LinkedIn page with the caption, Leading our next chapter of growth as VP of Sales. Hundreds of comments poured in. Congratulations. Well deserved. From people who didn't even know what he actually did, other than boosting engagement in team meetings. I kept doing my job as usual, managing enterprise accounts, solving crises behind the scenes, and training new hires. But the strange thing was, no one asked how I felt. No check-ins from leadership, no kind words from the CEO. That's when I realized something. To them, I wasn't the backbone anymore. I was legacy, respected, but outdated. One Friday night, after sending the final proposal to a finance client, I met Grace, an old coworker now running sales at another firm, at our regular bar. You holding up okay? She asked, gin tonic in hand. Fine, I said, taking a sip. Well, mostly. Heard about Ethan, she said carefully. If I were you, I'd just quit. Everyone knows you're the one who actually deserved that title. I didn't answer right away. Then I looked at her and said calmly, I will leave, but not empty-handed, and not quietly. Grace raised a brow. What do you mean? I set my glass down, met her eyes. They think I'm compliant. They're wrong. I'm not weak. I'm just waiting for the right moment. Monday morning, Ethan held a team alignment breakfast, a fancy name for a breakfast meeting to discuss strategy. Of course I was there. Sharp look, polite smile. Ethan went on and on about Gen Z sales approach, empathy-driven deals, and omni-channel reactivation, all the usual hollow buzzwords. He couldn't even remember the name of our biggest client in the central region. I sat, took notes, and nodded occasionally. When he asked about the Q4 forecast, I replied evenly, based on the current data, if we don't adjust the retention model, churn could exceed 14%. But I'm sure you've got a plan for that. He laughed, uneasy. Of course, of course. But I saw his hand tighten around the pen, a small twitch at the corner of his mouth, the first time I'd ever seen Ethan lose control. That afternoon, when the conference room was empty, I stood alone inside the glass walls, the place I once thought I'd give my first speech as vice president. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear, cold and clear. I didn't need that title to prove my worth. What I needed was freedom, and a strike that would count. At the end of the day, I opened my laptop and logged into an old personal Dropbox account. Inside were dozens of files, proposals, quotes, data analyses, pitch decks, audio recordings from negotiations. I started making a list. On it, I wrote, target clients, weak points in NorthBridge's current contracts, opportunities for re-entry through personal connections. At the bottom, I typed the title in bold, Silent Transition Plan. I started with the small things, the ones no one ever notices because they seem too ordinary. First, I updated my personal contacts. I filtered out the clients who'd worked closest with me, the ones who'd grabbed coffee with me after conferences, who'd sent late-night emails at 2 in the morning asking, Madison, do you think this approach is too risky? I called them my quiet inner circle. They were the people who knew who actually kept things running at NorthBridge, who untangled the nanny disaster hours before a contract was due. And most importantly, they trusted me, not the shiny new VP title on Ethan's LinkedIn page. Next, I created a private offline folder holding every detail about our largest accounts: pricing structures, negotiation pain points, who sat on each contract committee, and most valuable of all, the unspoken agreements I'd brokered for them, the back doors that legal never knew existed. When it came to the legal side, I stepped like I was crossing a minefield. I dug up my original onboarding documents from my first year at NorthBridge. Buried in there was a 3-page non-compete clause. It looked airtight, but in truth, there was a flaw Ethan would never notice. The clause only applied while I was actively employed. Not a single word stopped me from preparing my exit before my official resignation. Nowhere did it say I couldn't own a third-party entity that offered a similar service. I actually laughed. Laws only intimidate the people who don't read carefully. 3 weeks after Ethan's promotion, Atlas Consulting, LLC was born. A small company with a commercial mailbox in downtown Austin as its temporary office. No signboard, no website, just a bare LinkedIn profile and a hidden portfolio link shared only upon request. I chose the name Atlas because I like the image of someone holding the world on their shoulders, not complaining, not breaking. And the moment that the world turned its back, all they had to do was set it down. I needed allies, not trend chasers, but people who knew what it felt like to be forgotten. First was Julia Tran, the former head of data, laid off during cost reductions. Sharp, cold, unshakably loyal. She agreed within 15 minutes of meeting me at a quiet bar. I've been waiting for this call, she said. Next came Luis Ortega, once our lead in strategic accounts. He'd been sidelined after paternity leave, a master at reading clients' moods through punctuation alone. He showed up to our first meeting with a hard drive containing CRM interaction histories for at least 30 former clients. I didn't ask how he got it. The three of us understood perfectly. This wasn't a company, it was a campaign. Meanwhile, I began to move within the system. No hacking, nothing illegal, just deliberate rearranging. I uploaded simplified versions of shared proposals, removed author names, and reformatted them to strip out electronic signatures. I changed access rights on key folders from editor to viewer. No one noticed right away, but anyone who worked on those files daily would start to feel the quiet friction building under their fingertips. I was fading my own trail, setting up an exit they wouldn't detect until it was too late. Then I started reaching out. No grand openings, no flashy signatures, just short, direct messages to people who still trusted me. Hi, Mark. Hope everything's smooth on your end. If you ever run into issues with NorthBridge, feel free to reach out. I still offer external support when needed. Hi, Sarah. Hope the new project's going well. If you'd like another strategy option, my small team's been assisting a few firms. Would you mind if I sent over a sample proposal? No one questioned it. They just saw the same old Madison, doing what she'd always done, solving problems. One client asked, "So you've started your own company?" I replied with a smile emoji. No confirmation, no denial. Each night, I logged the conversations, saved their responses, and tagged them by priority. I wasn't just leaving the company. I was relocating power, one relationship, one memory, 1 ounce of trust at a time. Then, one Tuesday morning, a message came from NorthBridge's largest client, the same one who once said that if I ever left, he wouldn't stay either. The message had only 2 words, ready now. I smiled. Ethan had the title, but I had the clients. Ethan noticed something was wrong on Thursday afternoon when the finance numbers did not match the CRM reports. On the dashboard, the strategic client in the Northeast region, one of our largest accounts, suddenly went silent. No meetings, no responses, no explanation. A seven-figure deal negotiated over 2 quarters was flagged as pending for an unspecified reason. Ethan frowned and tapped the desk as if waiting for the system to realize its mistake and fix itself. At first, he blamed seasonality, saying maybe they were on vacation with the sales team and trying to keep the mood light. No one laughed, because everyone knew large enterprise clients did not put the whole team on holiday for 2 weeks without notice. The next morning, 2 other contracts in California started showing strange signs. Sent emails, received no reply, automated meetings were canceled, proposal documents refused to open. Ethan grew tense. He went straight to legal, asking for a full review of internal data access. Nobody objected, but nobody panicked either. They thought it was a system error or that Ethan was too green to understand customer cycles. I knew better. This was the moment he began to smell smoke, but did not know where the fire was. The following Monday, Ethan sent me a Slack message asking if I had time to talk quickly about Q3 accounts, as some deals seemed a little off. I left the message sitting for 5 minutes, long enough to seem busy, short enough not to look evasive. Sure, at 11 in the morning works for me, I answered. Bring the list, and we will review it together. We met in the small see-through conference room, private but under fluorescent lights that still highlighted the dark circles beneath Ethan's eyes. He opened his laptop and read the list of clients showing irregular behavior in a steady voice, like he was running a training session while his fingers kept drumming the desk, trying to hold on to the last bit of control. I leaned in and looked at the screen. Yes, a few deals are slow, I said, but that is normal. End of quarter budget transfers people on leave. You know the drill. Ethan managed a forced smile. I just want to make sure nothing is overlooked, he said. I offered help. I can nudge procurement for you if you want. Some of them are closer to me. He hesitated. No, not necessary. His voice slightly off rhythm, like someone who knows they are sinking but still says I can swim. 3 days later, the internal email system switched to two-factor authentication for all accounts with high-level client data access. A small change, but enough for me to know Ethan was responding by tightening controls. I was not surprised. I had changed tactics long ago. I did not use internal email. I did not use company devices. I left no metadata. Important documents were rebuilt clean from scratch and sent through a platform that granted one-time access and could not be downloaded. I did not erase traces. I never left them in the first place. Ethan did not sit still. He quietly hired an independent audit firm under the pretext of invoice-requested data compliance checks. Everyone understood what that meant. Ethan suspected someone was working both sides, and he thought that person was me. I noticed when a man with a temporary badge started wandering around a T, asking about internal backups and file edit histories. I smiled and nodded as he passed. He did not know I had steered him to check the wrong things. To push Ethan into losing control faster, I used a psychological move. One Tuesday morning, I sent Ethan a polished client data summary, professional in presentation, and intentionally incomplete, missing a few key highlights, a couple of private notes, and one or two deep analyses that only the client and I had ever discussed off-channel. Ethan frowned. Where are the churn risk analyses for client X and Y? He asked. I shrugged calmly. Probably in the old file. Try client_retention. _2021 folder. If it is not there, then it is likely gone. I knew the folder had been set to view only. No one could edit it, no one could copy it, and certainly no one could restore it. Ethan did not answer, but I saw his hand tighten on the pen, his eyes staring without blinking. That is the look of someone who first feels power slipping from their hands without knowing where it fell. Later that afternoon, passing the conference room, I overheard Ethan on a call with the executive team saying he was tracking response rates from major clients and that there seemed to be information interference in the middle, that he could not rule out someone working both sides. An older voice cut in. We need concrete evidence, Ethan. You cannot accuse people on a hunch. The conference room glass is thin, but I kept walking as if I had not heard. No need to stop. I did not need to argue. I only had to wait until they could not rebut. That night, an old client emailed me. "We are considering moving to a smaller vendor for flexibility. Do you know anyone reliable?" I replied immediately. "I have a small advisory team I trust. I will connect you directly. No logo, no proposal, just a personal introduction from someone they trusted completely." They did not ask more. They believed me. Ethan thought he was investigating an attack. I was simply opening an exit and leading him into the blind spot I had drawn. From the moment Ethan started getting suspicious, I knew my time was running out. Every move from here had to be exact down to the smallest detail. There was no room for mistakes. I shifted my entire plan from a gradual transition to controlled withdrawal. Every client I'd reached out to was now risk scored, sorted by loyalty level, and quietly prepared for a soft handover. The first step was sending them new proposals, cleaner, sharper, and branded in my own language. No trace of NorthBridge, no familiar fonts, no logo, no standard templates, just a company called Atlas Consulting, an auxiliary solutions partner offering the same services, only faster and more personal. A few clients asked, "Does this company have anything to do with Madison?" I just smiled. I give them a bit of advice sometimes, but they do great work. No confirmation, no denial. They trusted me. That was enough. At the same time, I began erasing myself from the system. I changed my internal email signature to a shorter version, just my name and title, no personal phone number, no links to outside profiles. I reviewed every file I'd ever created on the company drive and stripped my ownership rights, converting them all into shared, view-only documents. Anyone could open them, but no one could edit. Those detailed proposals, complex quotes, all replaced by simplified versions. Clean, harmless, worthless without verbal context. Ethan could check everything he wanted. All he'd find were hollow shells. I also left behind a few decoys, just enough to trigger doubt, but never enough to serve as proof. I accidentally sent Ethan an outdated pricing file. Wrong date, missing client info. He replied in 2 minutes. "Madison? Wrong version? No updated data here." "Sorry," I wrote back. "You might be looking at a draft. I'll check the server. I never sent another file." He knew I was hiding something. He just didn't know where to look, because I wasn't using any system he could monitor. To reinforce the plan, I set a trap through the audit channel. I sent a proposal revision request to finance, seeing Ethan, attaching a fake Google Drive link. The link opened to a blank page with a single note: "Updating final version. Please do not edit." The result came 2 days later in the company bulletin. "We will begin reviewing all employee data access permissions related to client information." I smiled. The net was tightening, but not around me. At the same time, Atlas signed its first trial contract. 3 months long, worth an entire quarter of my NorthBridge salary. No celebration. I accelerated. Luis, Atlas's client relations lead, sent demo invitations to 4 more companies, all former strategic partners of NorthBridge. He used an anonymous address. The emails were impeccably professional, with no mention of me anywhere. Julia, our technical lead, rebuilt everything: templates, dashboards, quotes, onboarding kits, making Atlas look like a polished tech startup, clean, seamless, untraceable. We weren't just transferring clients, we were building a new entity, fully legal, deeply appealing, and completely outside NorthBridge's control. Ethan saw none of it. All he saw were cooler emails, postponed meetings, and clients asking to delay quotes until next quarter. One even requested to communicate via personal contact only, and that number wasn't his. Meanwhile, I submitted a 2-week leave request for personal reasons. Ethan read the email and texted me. "Hope everything's okay. Let me know if you need help with any pending deals." "Thanks," I replied. "Everything's already on track." On the first morning of my leave, I sat at an outdoor cafe by the Colorado River, laptop open, Atlas dashboard glowing on the screen. 3 new clients, 2 demos, 1 contract in signing. I was no longer an employee of NorthBridge in spirit. I had only one task left: to make this transition irreversible. I opened my personal email and pulled up a draft I'd written weeks earlier. Subject line, formal resignation letter. I didn't hit send, not yet. One last card remained, and I'd play it when they believed I'd already folded. I sent my resignation on a Monday morning at 8:03, right before the office had finished its first sip of coffee. After 6 years with NorthBridge, I've decided it's time to open a new chapter. I'm grateful for everything I've learned here and proud of the journey I've helped build. I'll do whatever's needed to ensure a smooth transition. My final working day, 14 days from today. No bitterness, no complaints, just a perfectly neutral email, the kind HR loves. But to me, it was a declaration of independence. I wasn't walking out, I was executing the final phase. The first reply came from HR, a standard "we're sad to see you go" template, followed by a handover checklist, exit interview form, and a request to return equipment. Cold and mechanical, just like they'd been with me all along. Then came Ethan. He didn't message right away. Near the end of the day, a short line popped up on Slack. Heard you're leaving? Hope everything's okay. Good luck. I didn't answer. For the next 14 days, I showed up on time, replied to emails, and joined meetings. But the looks around me had changed. No longer trust, not quite suspicion either, just distance. Maybe they thought I'd given up. Maybe they thought I was tired. No one realized I had already left long before I typed that email. On the last day, I came in early. I cleared my desk, packed a small canvas bag, just a few notebooks, an old photo with the sales team from my second year, and a USB drive no one ever noticed. My farewell email was polite, short, and impersonal. No party, no hug from management. Only a new hire, Ashley, was stopping by. Her voice small. I heard you're leaving. That's a shame. I've learned so much from you. I smiled softly. Thanks. Believe in yourself. And remember, in internal meetings, never say synergy more than 3 times. They'll think you've run out of ideas. Ashley laughed. I walked out of the office like a passing breeze. The moment I left the parking lot, I opened my phone and logged into Atlas Consulting. On the dashboard, 6 active clients. 3 new contracts are in negotiation. A calendar is booked solid, and one alert, contract number 7 signed. First payment received. The company account balance showed 5 figures. Clean, legal, built entirely by me. Meanwhile, Ethan began to feel the silence. The day I left, he took over all my accounts. The familiar client names filled the CRM, but no one replied to his follow-ups. One client's auto-reply said, "We're currently working with another vendor. Please reach out later." Another simply vanished. Ethan tried calling. No one picked up. Even the one who used to invite him golfing was in meetings all week. By the 3rd day, Ethan visited AT. "Does Madison still have any access?" he asked. "All permissions were revoked per policy," they said. "No irregularities detected." He nodded, but his eyes said something else. I knew that look. The look of someone who realizes they've been outplayed but can't figure out how. That night, a message came from an old colleague. "Ethan's digging through old reports, asking about your past deals. He's completely lost." I read it, set my phone down, and took a sip of red wine, the bottle sent by a new Atlas client who'd just signed. I had never felt freer. No office, no KPIs, no empty pep talks about company culture. Just me, and the system I built with my own hands. A network of clients, trust, and data that no one could ever steal. Ethan thought I had retreated. In truth, I was rebuilding everything. Ethan lost his composure. A week after I left, 3 of NorthBridge's largest accounts formally announced a pause to reassess strategy. Polite language, but to someone with Ethan's experience, that was corporate speak for "you have been replaced." He began to act on instinct. First came an email to IT titled, "Urgent Data Access for Madison Clark." He requested a review of 6 months of access logs and a list of every file Madison had edited or downloaded. I had anticipated that. I did not use company devices to access sensitive documents. I did not send anything through the internal email. I did not download files that Ethan could easily detect. I worked from the fringe, using my own device, encrypted platforms, and light touches inside the system, enough to extract information without leaving a trail. Ethan found nothing concrete, The silence in the data only made him more suspicious. He started seeding rumors internally, hinting that I might have stolen client data before I left. My name crept into private after-hours meetings. Fine. That was the plan. An old friend sent a screenshot of a deleted Slack message where Ethan asked the VP of HR directly, "Do we still need to CC Madison on client emails?" The message was deleted 2 minutes later. But I had the screenshot. It was time to strike back publicly. No more working entirely in the dark. I registered for Tech Summit Austin, the annual tech conference NorthBridge used to sponsor. They were not there this year. Budget cuts, maybe. I was. Julia and I rented a small booth on the fringe of the expo. No flashy signage, just a neat counter with Atlas Consulting in muted teal, a minimalist modern typeface. Louise stood beside me, adjusting a tablet showing our new dashboard. Right before the doors opened, I sent a message to 5 former NorthBridge clients. If you are at the conference today, stop by booth 17. I have something you will want to see. The first to arrive was Raymond, CTO of the retail group that had signed an A-figure contract with NorthBridge. He looked around, then at me, surprised and pleased. "Madison, I guessed you finally broke free," he said, offering his hand. "I did not break free," I answered. "I rebuilt, from the ground up, the right way." I gave a TTW minute demo on how we rewired deployment processes, cleaned up data support, and cut onboarding from 6 weeks to 10 days. No flashy language, no showmanship, only results built on the work I had done for them, done again properly. Raymond nodded. "Send me a proposal, this week." The first message Ethan received from the conference was a photo of the Atlas booth, sent by a former employee. 2 words captioned it. "She's here." I knew Ethan would lose it. 2 days later, NorthBridge Legal emailed me asking for clarification on data use and contacts with former clients. I replied with a single attachment, a photo of the original contract terms showing my name as the responsible party for those clients. I added a note. "Popo employment. Clauses do not restrict these relationships. I did not contact clients from NorthBridge Systems, and I have not violated any NDA." No reply. Ethan did not give up. He convened an emergency meeting, pulled in the CEO and legal, and raised allegations of client manipulation. But he had only suspicion, no evidence, no breach of systems, no leaked emails. Doubt began to shift back toward Ethan, that he was manufacturing blame to cover a collapse of strategic accounts. That night, I sat in a small San Diego office, the window open to the sea. A soft breeze coming in. Julia handed me a report. 3 new clients agreed to 2-month contracts total value of over $1 million. Luis raised a beer. "We are starting to look like a threat," he said. I shook my head. "No," I answered. "They are a threat to themselves." The NorthBridge board meeting was called in a hurry on Monday morning, 1 week after Atlas Consulting had become the unexpected highlight of Tech Summit Austin. The official agenda read, "Review of Q2 performance and significant shifts in client portfolios." But everyone in the room knew what it really meant, damage control, without saying the word crisis. Ethan sat at the center table, laptop open, stripped of his former confidence. His shirt was wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Gone was the smiling nephew who once preached about revitalizing the workforce. What sat there now was a young, inexperienced executive struggling to explain why revenue had dropped 34% in a single quarter. And then the leak hit. An anonymous post on an industry forum claimed that 3 enterprise clients had left NorthBridge to sign with a newly formed consulting firm. No names, no accusations, but clear enough that anyone could read between the lines. The media stayed quiet. Investors did not. Within 3 days, NorthBridge's stock dipped. Not by much, but enough to signal something worse than numbers. Lost confidence. And in finance, lost confidence is always the steepest slope. Inside the company, the air shifted. The once busy Slack channels turned silent, filled only with half-hearted morning greetings. The sales leaderboard hadn't been updated in 2 weeks. A scheduled lunch and learn was canceled without explanation. Legal sent out new confidentiality agreements for everyone to sign. No one said why. Rumors spread like static through the halls. Ethan's under investigation. Someone sabotaged the pipeline. Madison might be involved. I wasn't there to hear them. I watched from afar, through forwarded messages, secondhand reports, and the growth charts of Atlas Consulting. 7 clients had signed long-term contracts. 3 more were in final negotiation. Total revenue crossed $2 million in our first quarter. We hired 2 engineers and opened a second office in Chicago. Not for show, but as proof we were here to stay. Ethan wasn't fired immediately. NorthBridge handled it the corporate way, by restructuring. He was reassigned to an internal strategy support role. No client access, no team, no VP signature line. His name disappeared from the company org chart a week later. No announcement, no farewell, as if he had never existed in that position. And the CEO? Mark Wells, the man who once put blind faith in his nephew, was invited to step down by the board. A rushed press release followed. We thank Mark for his contributions during NorthBridge's early growth and wish him the best in his future endeavors. The last message I ever received from him came through LinkedIn. We should have seen you coming. I didn't respond right away. The next morning I typed back, you never looked. Inside NorthBridge, the collapse didn't come like an explosion. It seeped like a leak. Slow, silent, unstoppable, one of bum. My former clients declined renewal, opting for a more flexible solution. A minor investor pulled funding and demanded a full audit. The quarterly report was revised twice, just to manage expectations, and I waited. At Atlas, Luis sent me a chart showing 6-month operational growth. Every metric pointed upward. Julia followed with news. We'd been invited to join a joint venture with a Fortune 100 company. I said nothing, just saved the screenshot, not to brag, to remember that some revenge doesn't need blood, noise, or destruction. It only needs time, patience, and a flawless plan. A year after I sent my resignation email, Atlas Consulting entered its second year with just 8 people, 2 small offices, and 11 core clients, including 3 Fortune 500 brands. We didn't have big conference rooms, no personal assistants, no pointless 4 p.m. meetings to align team spirit. What we had was efficiency, trust, and the freedom to make every decision our own way. I live in San Diego now, in a small oceanfront apartment. Not a fancy penthouse, but enough so that every morning I wake up to sunlight stretching across the water. A small kitchen, a bookshelf against the wall, an old wooden desk where I keep my laptop, and that's all I need. Each day I review project reports, make a few calls with Julia, plan our service expansion, and spend the afternoon walking along the beach. No KPIs, no quarterly reviews, no midnight emails demanding to optimize the budget in 6 hours. One morning, I got an email from an old colleague, the one who used to sit beside me back at NorthBridge. Ethan's gone, officially. He's now a digital transformation consultant for a small agency. No one really mentions him anymore, but I heard Atlas is making waves in the consulting world. I'm happy for you. I didn't know what to say. In the end, I just wrote back, thank you. Freedom that comes late is still freedom. A friend once asked me, do you ever regret it? Not staying, not fighting publicly. I thought for a moment, then said, not everyone deserves a public fight. Some battles are best when no one even realizes they happened, until the other side loses without knowing why. She went quiet, then smiled. Sometimes I still see old faces at industry events. They look at me differently now, not with surprise, but with respect. No one asks what I did, and I don't tell. No need to. The results speak for themselves. One late spring day, I stood in our new Chicago office, the second branch of Atlas, staring at the whiteboard where Julia had written, Growth Plan, Q3, Add Integrated AI Solutions. I laughed, not because of AI, but because of her messy handwriting, something that would never have been allowed at NorthBridge. I thought back to that old conference room, the cold white light, the faces that avoided my eyes when Ethan's name was called. I remembered him saying, I'll need you to hand over a few of the old pipelines. How ironic. Those old pipelines, Now feed the company that bears my name. That afternoon, a package arrived at the office, a bottle of wine and a note from Mr. Raymond, our first client. Thank you for not quitting the field. We need people like you. I opened the bottle, poured a glass, and stepped onto the balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and amber. The sea was calm, the waves whispering softly, as if saying, now, this moment belongs to you. I took a sip, opened my laptop, and looked at the silver logo on the screen. Atlas Consulting. No slogan, no fancy tagline, just a symbol. For those who once carried the world on their shoulders and chose to set it down to build one of their own. Some pipelines broke, some were stolen. But mine, I didn't destroy it, I just rerouted it. And now it flows straight toward freedom.